Yeah, so before we begin, we wanted to thank, number one, the AV team in the back for making us look good and sound good. This was a mad dash because of the traffic. We got here only about 15 minutes ago. And then we'd also like to remember that this is the work of many engineers and producers and product owners across Riot. So while we're on stage, please don't direct any of the credit to us. Please direct it to Riot. And then last but not least, we have so many partners that helped bring Project Stryker to life. Some of them are here in the room. I see you, NTC. So thank you very much for all the help. And it hasn't always been easy, but we're really glad to be able to show it off. So I figured I'd start by letting you know that Riot is actually expanding its universe. So we'll give you an idea of why this project came to be. For those of you that don't know us, we are Riot Games. We were founded about a decade ago. We make a little game called League of Legends and a new game, Valorant, and then many others. And we did all of that in about 12 months, from going from one game to all of the games. We say internally we earned our S. My name is Scott Adametz. I am the Director of Infrastructure for Riot Games, but in a past life I actually came from the traditional media side of the house. So I helped launch Big Ten Network, more recently Pac-12 Network, of which colleagues are here, and then before Riot grabbed me was the National Football League down in Los Angeles. I get to introduce you to Riot's Wizard of Secrecy, because of course Riot Games has a Wizard of Secrecy. His name is Randolph. We've kind of sanitized the presentation, but you are seeing things that we have not necessarily shown our fans and players. And it's not because we don't trust you, we just want to make sure we don't spoil anything for fans. That's kind of Riot's mission, and I'll go into that in a second. We do everything for these players and fans, so let's not ruin anything for them. So we've had actually the same mission statement since we launched, which is we aspire to be the most player-focused gaming company in the world. And there's two things I call out here that are really important. The word aspire. It means we'll never be finished. That's not there's no end of this journey. We always have to keep aspiring to be this. And most player-focused, there's a really clear reason why. It's because you can do things like this.
We are changing the game forever.
We have probably watched that. Sure. James and I have probably watched that over the last week and Worlds about 100 times, and it still gets like the hairs on my neck standing up and goosebumps.
Okay.
Right?
I was just going to say, I can't wait to add this year's Worlds to it as well.
Yeah, this is
What a
the
banger.
BD
That was
Sizzle
wild.
leading into this year's events. So we also have a mission in esports, and it's bringing joy to billions. We didn't, it's not a typo, we really used a B. Bringing joy to billions of esports fans, no matter where they live, how they watch, or what language they speak. And that's a really powerful message for us. Here's the problem though. We kept creating games that people loved, which then created events. And those events we have to cover live, because that's not doing so as a disservice to our fans. And you kind of know that's our main mantra. So we created our own problem. And I'll tell you an anecdotal story that I wouldn't share necessarily publicly, but the game Valorant, you know it as Valorant, we knew it as Ares. That was its code name. And it was behind the scenes. I remember sitting in the IT lab, or engineering lab in Los Angeles, and I was sitting and watching two of our most brilliant engineers playing this pre-alpha. It wasn't in the production gate. It was very early days. This was before the pandemic, if we can all remember a time before then. And they were playing, and I would go to meetings. I had like 2 hours of meetings, came back, they're still playing. Went to another hour-long meeting, came back, they're still playing. So it was added up to about 5 hours. And at Riot, that's encouraged. Like playing games at work, good. You're not in trouble, and we encourage that. But I realized that if this game was this good, this early, and it was capturing their attention, that the word in my head is something I'm probably not say right now, but that's what went through my head, because how are we going to cover this? We could barely do League at the time. League is a global, massive sport. And we had 3 global tournaments a year, plus a lot of regional events. 24/7, there is a League event happening. If Valorant is even half that big, or Ares at the time, was even half that big, we would not have the capacity. In fact, we had already reached our production capacity from doing just League. So it got me thinking of how we might solve this. We knew we needed to change the model. We had to kind of think differently and invest into the future. So this project actually started at that moment when I had a panic attack thinking, oh great, this is going to be an esport, isn't it? We also don't, in Riot, force an esport. That's kind of an odd idea, but we let our fans and players tell us that they want it to become an organized esport. So seeing how good it was and how much they were invested, I kind of saw what was coming. So obviously the model wasn't going to work if we just took what we had for League, copied and paste. It wouldn't have worked. It was just too inefficient, it was too large, and it had been built organically over about 10 years by that time. So this is how we actually started to solve the problem. We had this idea of remote broadcast centers, but we also added a piece that I could just build one of them. That wouldn't solve the problem, because I'd have all my resources in one location and I would overburden a team. So I said, well, what if we strategically located them around the world? What would that do? Could that actually allow us? Because remember, Riot's a global company and our esports are operated globally. We don't just have one territory and it's like, you're different, you'll do whatever, figure it out. We try to keep consistency. So this is where we settled on these. And I'll tell you, these locations were not just randomly picked. We did an exhaustive research and risk analysis survey to start this project. We analyzed 137 cities around the world, 200 facets for each of the decisions, everything from geopolitical risk to cost of living to connectivity. Because we could put these in, Death Valley. It'd be cheap, but there's no connectivity, and who wants to live in Death Valley? So we had to have some kind of like short list that came up, and I'll tell you that these were the locations that rose to the top. And Dublin, being the first location we were able to lock a building and begin construction, set our time zone. So that's what we did. We carved the world into 3 time zones. Centered on UTC, we went back 8 hours and ahead 8 hours. And so if you kind of see where we're going with this, if I could produce content seamlessly by connecting these together in a follow the sun model, I'm covered. I can grow and scale, and I don't have to build 20 different facilities. I can build 3. But James is going to tell you how we did that a bit differently. They're not 3 individual facilities. They're one facility spread across the world. And that's pretty unique when you start to see what we're actually doing. So this increased production capacity, check that box. It'll let us have support for new titles because we built these with first principles of game agnostic. We didn't want to build it just for Valorant, or we didn't want to build it just for Wild Rift. It had to support any current title and any future title that we're working on. And we needed to reduce regional burden and toil because our regions at the time were tanking all of this. They were doing all of World's productions remotely for 7 years at this time, out of Los Angeles or Berlin. And that's a lot for a region to do this, especially when you had one game. And when we're doing a global event, the region is not doing a regional event because we only had one game. You don't do another Super Bowl while you're doing the Super Bowl. But when you add another sport, we started to have this peaks and valleys problem where we had Worlds happening, but we also had Valorant events happening at the same time. So we really had to figure out how to help regions get through this. So these are the enabling technologies. We're not new to this. Like, this is something we've been doing for over a decade now. And we're not pioneers in centralized production or remote production. Like, a lot of people in this room have done this. We're standing on the shoulders of giants is the way we say this. We think the follow the sun operations model is a bit unique in the sense that we are a global company that has to operate globally. And each facility at the end of the day, my hope is you shut the lights off and you go home. Go home to your family, go relax. Because that'll control for burnout. And it'll also allow us to kind of consistently have good production quality as we turn facilities off and bring up the next facility. So, as Europe's signing off, the Americas is coming online and picking up any in-progress events and any events that will happen later. So this, for all the business folk in the room, is a much more efficient use of capital. Because now my capital is not sitting in a dark control room waiting for the midnight hours to end for the next events to happen. I can actually use that equipment in another time zone or another continent. And James will explain how we're actually able to do that. All of this is powered by something called Riot Direct. So raise your hands. Anyone know what Riot Direct is? Okay, that's actually awesome. I want more people to know what Riot Direct is. Riot Direct is our internal ISP. Riot actually, when they first launched the game, figured out that player experience was poor because of the type of traffic that League of Legends uses. So they built their own global ISP, and as of 2019, it had a couple terabits of edge capacity just to support League. You can imagine it's grown tremendously since then. But it provides us seamless connectivity, and that is how we're building this backbone of production and technology to power these amazing sports. We say the biggest esports on earth, but to be honest, we just want to power all of our events. We don't treat them differently. We actually really did build them differently, and James will go into some details. We issued convention of how you should build a facility. I'll give you a hint. We don't have a central equipment room. So in these facilities, there's no big server room that has all the equipment. It's not there. It's miles away, and there's some reasons we did that. And we pushed the boundaries of what is possible. Thank you, NTC, because they listened to us in our first pitch, and they're like, whew, yeah, I think it's possible. I mean, let's see. And they helped us design this, because we really were pushing what the vendors and the technology at the time was capable of. And we started this back in 2019. So I'm going to show you a video now, but I wanted to kind of end this on the idea that these facilities actually jumpstart us into a new era, the way that we want to produce worlds like we just did for the next 10 years. We're looking that far out, but we always do this with our fans in mind. This is just designed to better serve our fans. It's not tech for tech's sake, and we don't want our names on this or our pictures on this. That's not why we're doing this. It's for our fans. So Project Stryker's here, and you're going to see an internal video that we actually used to introduce this project to all of Riot. They had not known what we were working on, so you're in a very small list of people that have seen this video. So enjoy.
Imagine a world where esports matches are always live, and the competition never ends. Introducing Project Stryker. A network of 3 Riot remote broadcast centers being constructed strategically around the world. First stop, Dublin, Ireland. In less than 6 months, Riot transformed a 50,000 square foot former nightclub into a state-of-the-art remote broadcast center designed for one purpose: bringing joy to esports fans no matter where they live, how they watch, or what language they speak. To see Stryker in action, let's head to show day at one of our regional leagues in Brazil, CBLOL, and follow the life cycle of a live event. It all starts here, are live competitions, where legends are born and the top gamers on the planet face off in epic and unforgettable battles. Capture the excitement of the competition through our broadcast to share live with billions of fans across the globe. To make this happen, the equipment on site is connected to our mobile contribution kit. It's a game changer. Advanced encoders and decoders process the feeds and send them over 10,000 kilometers in a fraction of a second. Riot Direct carries the feeds the entire way, ensuring they arrive at the nearest esports data center, where they are then handed off to Riot's first Stryker production facility in Dublin.
Dublin, we have the ability to create, manage, and broadcast esports content. Signals arrive in real time, and their very first stop is the top.
The TOC, or Technical Operations Center, is where video and audio connections are managed. Feeds from anywhere in the world travel thousands of miles in about a tenth of a second, or the time it takes to blink your eye, all thanks to the speed of Riot Direct. Our QC team identifies problems with audio and video feeds as early as possible and prepares everything for handoff to production. Once everything is ready, the TOC operator passes the signals to one of Stryker's production control rooms. For today's event in Brazil, for example, they'll be using a production control room right here in Dublin. The incoming feeds are routed here to PCRD, where they are used to create today's show. Now begins a masterclass in global collaboration. Brazil chose to throw this production to Stryker because their control rooms are already booked for other local esports content. But this show is actually being produced in 5 different languages simultaneously. That's part of Stryker's magic. Our primary Portuguese-speaking casters can stay in Sao Paulo, but the alternate language casters cast the show from anywhere, using private feeds generated by Stryker. Our audio control room manages those remote casters. This ACR is where we combine audio sources to produce our broadcasts. We use powerful audio consoles to mix the event's raw audio sources together, along with the multiple language tracks to create our final show mixes, all done live. For this show, we're creating 5 simultaneous language versions using caster audio feeds from around the world. Now, creating 5 renditions simultaneously would normally be very challenging, but through automation, we're able to combine any number of audio, video, and graphics sources seamlessly.
At Project Stryker, we can easily create all the localized elements needed for these 5 languages. Once complete, the signals are ready for our viewers. At that point, the team at the TOC do one final check, and all 5 feeds get sent to players around the world. Behind the scenes, we can even share our multi-view screens with the production team back in Sao Paulo. This way, their local producer can collaborate on all the different versions of their event. The completed shows and highlights are automatically uploaded to Riot Esports' new Global Content Vault. This is Project Stryker. We are building the foundation for the next decade of Riot Esports.
Dublin is just the first step on our journey. As more Stryker facilities come online in the US and APAC, we'll create global follow-the-sun coverage. Riot Esports' focus has never wavered, to bring joy to billions of fans around the world.
That's pretty cool. It's always good to see that one end to end. It's a lot of fun. So hi everyone, my name's James. I'm an engineer on Riot's esports team. My apologies as well, it's about to get technical, so for those of you in the room, I'll try and keep it a little bit light. But yes, so a little bit of a look behind what we've actually built here in Project Stryker. So as Scott outlined, we've really tried to think differently in building this facility and build something that's truly capable of spanning the globe and picking up esports no matter where they are. So looking at the way we initially thought about how we'd build our production centers, we knew that at the top we had some pieces that we already had at Riot. We have our live roadshow events, we have our permanent regional studios, and we have Riot Direct. Amazon's now introducing some pretty interesting stuff as well. So we're looking at ways, how can we connect all of that together and use it? Additionally, in designing for 3 facilities but wanting to use them as one, we're also looking at how do we actually connect these things together? How can we make it so that when one of the facilities goes offline for the day, operators in another region, in another part of Riot, can pick up on those assets? For instance, replay channels. When one event's done, why can't we throw replay channels to somewhere else in the world and make them available for another production? This is where we start to look at some of the efficiencies that we can develop as a part of Stryker. So, this is what Riot Direct looks like. Scott was alluding to it before, but as you can see, this is a global network of IP links that spans everywhere. We've got everything from India right through to Europe, right down, also now heading in towards the Middle East as well. We've got over 50 points of presence where we can pick up any regional studio, any live event, and put them all onto a common IP backbone. This means we can truly deliver signals privately, reliably, and efficiently anywhere in the world. So looking at one of the control rooms, this is one of 6 in Dublin. At first glance, it looks like it's a pretty regular production control room. You've got a switcher control surface front and center. You've got some positions for directors and producers and all of the like. You've got comms, you've got a workstation, you've got everything you need right there. Multi-views, the works. But what's special about this is that there's actually none of the equipment that's powering those devices are in the same building. And this is where we started to really kind of double down on our thoughts on remote production. What if we could build the actual production facilities as a remote production facility? Rather than putting all of the equipment in the same room, we would actually be forced to solve some of the problems associated with remote production right from the start. So in building our facilities, we actually broke the heavy, noisy, hot equipment that likes to live in racks, and we put that in a data center. Turns out Ireland is actually full of them. So we were able to build our production capacity in a place that makes sense, where there's reliable power, cooling, and someone else is handling that, which is nice. And then we connected our data center to our broadcast center using 200 gig internet lines. We're able to run signals between the 2 facilities with a layer of compression that we call that is JPEG XS. So building the entire facility on IP means that we had to kind of think a little bit differently and also think about solving about how do you get these IP signals in and out of the facility to start with. A little bit further look, this is actually what the network looks like. For the engineers in here, I'll just leave that up for a bit, but this is one of 2 networks. You can see a little note, every green line there is actually a 100 gig network connection. Top left is the data center, and the bottom right is actually the broadcast center, and that's all of our media devices. We can process thousands of video and audio flows, and this actually directly replaces what many broadcast facilities would call their SDI router. No more 1,000 by 1,000 SDI spigots. We're talking everything is a network connection, everything runs on multicast, and any device in Stryker can subscribe instantly to any source. It's really, really powerful to see in action. And we can get some pretty interesting analytics, like right down to which particular network cable a video flow is traversing. We have terabits worth of capacity. I think we totaled it at around 350, was it? And when we were looking through some of the initial stats of Stryker, we realized that for Worlds in 2021, in 6 weeks, we processed about 4 petabytes of data?
Yeah, it was 3.2 petabytes to do a remote production of Worlds. I think it was actually 2019. We now do that just in Dublin every 28 minutes. If you can imagine, that's over 114 games and 6 weeks of competition in less than half an hour.
So just looking at the control room again, all of these signals are remote. Everything is coming in over the wire. But the operators don't feel a thing. The latency of IP networking, even though there is a layer of encode-decode to make those signals available on the WAN, the operators don't see anything. It's less than a frame of delay. So it's actually truly amazing to see.
Yeah, we actually asked them, we're like, where do you think that multi-viewer is being generated? And they're all like, oh, it's got to be in the basement or in like the equipment room. We're like, well, 1, there is no equipment room. 2, it's 20 miles away. And they're punching sources. The panel is talking to a frame 20 miles away. So if we can do that, James alluded to it, but if we can do that, we could control a frame from Sao Paulo, and the frame can be in Dublin. And we actually have tested that.
For Stryker's first show, we actually were signed up to produce the Wyld Rift Global Championships, which happened in July. And the story of that event is quite fun because it was actually a production that was meant to take place in Madrid. So we thought, Madrid to Ireland, perfect. That's a nice, easy kind of hop. It's not too far in terms of remote. It's the right time zone and everything.
Great first test.
Great first test. But we had a slight problem because some of our competitors couldn't get visas to get to Spain. And so with 3 weeks' notice, the event actually got moved to Singapore. If you recall the Riot Direct slide, when you look at Riot Direct, where is it? It's somewhere here. Here we go. Singapore is a lot further away from Stryker in Dublin on the network than Spain is. So as we were prepping for the event, we realized that there wasn't actually a lot that we had to change. All we had to do was take our contribution kit and send it to Singapore instead of Spain. We did have a bit of a mad scramble to hook up our network connections at the Singapore site, but we got that done. And so, with our fingers crossed, we fired up Stryker for the first time, and we were thinking, well, what's going to happen here? We have absolutely no idea if we can run JPEG XS from Singapore to Dublin and back. And that's what this looked like. So this is actually the stage in Singapore. I was lucky enough to go there. And of course, it's buffering. And a production feed coming back from Dublin. So as you look at this, you'll see the delay in the signal is probably not that much more than you might see in some truck shows. But what's actually happening here is that the camera beside me is picking up the signal from the stage. It's sending it across the Pacific, across the continental US, across the Atlantic, into Dublin. It's going through the entire IP production chain in Dublin, out to the broadcast center and back again, back across the Pacific, back across the Atlantic, and back across the continental US, and landing on the monitor in the front there. It truly is working and running as a facility that can transmit globally in the blink of an eye. And one thing that was actually really cool was that the English production of that event was they distributed their control room due to COVID travel issues. So they had the technical director sitting in Dublin. They had the director, producer, and associate producer actually sitting in LA, consuming a multi-view from Dublin at this latency, calling the shots, and the talent were on site in Singapore. And so we were able to run a single control room over 3 continents for the first show. We're pretty proud of that. So that's yeah, that's the theory was real, and we were able to make it happen. So let's see. So thank you.
One more.
Oh yes. By the way, I always forget this one.
We're hiring. If you know of anyone that wants to work at Riot, I have 11 positions. Riot in general has like 300 open positions. Please send us your best. We need help. This isn't easy.
I need help.
James needs help. On our team specifically that supports infrastructure across the world in esports is network engineers, competitive IT, systems, broadcast, producers, product managers, and then anyone who wants to travel the world and work esports events, our field and fleet team that goes and actually operates these events. So please help us.
Thank you.
Thank you all.